Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. And I am excited. I have a co-host today, and it is ChatGPT. Chat, say hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be joining you for this episode. Let's dive in and make it a great one.
So much fun. All right. I'm going to turn off chat for just a minute so that I can do kind of an intro and let you guys know what we're doing today. And then I'm going to have chat help us because today's episode is 5 ChatGPT prompts to save speech language pathologists hours per week. So I'm going to be giving you the exact prompts that I use to have ChatGPT help me with my planning and my paperwork and making everything super fun and engaging in therapy in less time for me. So I'm going to be specifically using ChatGPT today. That's the one that I use the most, but there are lots of generative AI services out there. If you have access to a different one, you can absolutely do this. The idea behind generative AI is that it can create things for you. And so that's what we're going to be using it for today, is to not to be doing the thinking for us, not to be making clinical decisions or anything that a human really should be the one doing, but to do kind of the grunt work where we are asking it to create something that we can use for therapy or use to support a child. Okay. So if you have a different AI service that you like, absolutely these prompts will work for that as well. If you would like to try ChatGPT, you can go to chatgpt.com, and I think it's free to use for a certain number of prompts per month, maybe, but the paid service is not that much. I'm not going to say because I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like $20, $30, something like that per month. So it's really not too crazy expensive, and you can use it for a lot of stuff. So I am a big fan of just play with it and see what it can do, and then you'll start to get a feel for it. But I'm going to give you 5 prompts today that will help you specifically as a speech language pathologist with your workload. Okay, so also, just a side note, if you're looking for kind of a baby's first AI or an AI light version, we have AI bots inside our curriculum. So if you do have access to our curriculum over at hub.speechandlanguagekids.com, pop in there. We have pre-built several different AI bots that you can just kind of use the drop downs, type in a few words in terms of what you're looking for, and it will spit out the stuff for you. So you don't have to go through the whole prompting process because I've already put the prompts inside. So if you're looking for something a little easier, that's an option as well. All right, now a word of caution as we are using AI. Now, I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again because I need to say it every time. First of all, AI is not perfect, right? It is not a human being. There is no human being programming this behind the scenes. It is using everything it knows from the internet, from the world around it, and making guesses. And usually those are really helpful, but sometimes they can be inaccurate. So make sure you review everything that comes out of AI before using it with your clients, before using it in your paperwork or in your emails. Just know that it's very possible that it's not going to be correct or that there's going to be something a little off about it. Those of you who have used AI for a while, you know that you start to be able to kind of sense when something was created with AI because there's this kind of vague feeling that comes out of it sometimes. And that's usually because the person using it did not prompt it enough. And so this whole back and forth with the AI, it's not I say one thing, you say the other, here's the output, and then that's it, I'm done. It's an iterative process. You go back and forth and you help tweak it and modify it to make it more natural, to make it more specific to what you need. So just keep that in mind. The other word of caution is that ChatGPT, these other AI services, these are not HIPAA compliant. So you should not be sharing anything with your AI that you don't want to be public knowledge to everyone else. Now, that's not to say that this gets posted anywhere, but if you're sharing a client's name, a client's age, their birth date, any protected information, it's not protected. It is not sensitive to that. So make sure that as you are using these prompts, you are not giving any information that would be protected by HIPAA or health insurance, privacy, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are my words of caution. All right, so let's jump in. The first prompt is to create some materials during your speech therapy sessions. And this is the first one because this is the one that's going to save you the most time, because a lot of times we spend time outside of work, outside of our sessions, trying to find practice materials for our clients, trying to come up with a worksheet that will help them, trying to come up with an app or a game that will help them. And what we can do is we can use AI to generate practice items for whatever we're working on during our session. So we can pull this up in the middle of our session. We can have it give us word lists or images that contain our target skill, sentences or prompts, reading passages, conversational prompts, social scenarios. Anything that you're working on, you can have the AI pull that up during your session. And you can even customize it to the exact interests of your client, which is super helpful because you get more buy-in from them, and you can customize it to the exact version of that skill that they need or the exact thing that they're struggling with. Okay, so your prompt will sound something like, I am a speech language pathologist working with a blank-year-old client. You always want to start by giving some sort of context to the AI, because the more information it has, the better the output's going to be. So I like to start with, I'm a speech language pathologist working with this client, how old they are. And then I'll say, okay, create a blank, create a word list, create an image, create a sentence list that I can use to help them practice this skill. And then you give the specific skill that they're working on. Again, as much detail as you can is better. And then you can specify a theme. So you can say, the theme should be this. All right. So I'm going to turn my chat back on and I'm going to ask it for a material, and we're going to see what she comes up with. I have not pre-programmed these, so I have no idea what she's going to say. So let's pull her back up. Hey, chat, are you there?
I'm right here. Whenever you need me, I'm ready to jump in or just cheer you on. What's next?
All right. I'm a speech language pathologist working with a third grader. Create a list of 10 two-step directions that we can act out in the speech therapy room to practice following multi-step directions. The theme of the directions should be Minecraft, so make all of those based around that theme, such as by acting out activities that the characters might do in the game.
Absolutely, let's make it fun. Here we go. Walk to the table like a Minecraft creeper, then pretend to craft a diamond sword. Jump forward 3 times like you're dodging a skeleton, then sit down as if you're mining for iron. Pretend to build a tall tower with blocks, then carefully climb down from your imaginary tower.
Okay, I'm going to stop her there, but those were great. So I would recommend not using voice mode like I'm doing right now. I'm doing voice mode because it's more fun since we're on a podcast. But during your session, you would just type in your prompt and then it would pull up the list and then you would read those to the client one at a time. You would prompt them. You would do all those things that you're doing in therapy, right? So you can see how just in a matter of seconds, you can have a completely customized, tailored list of whatever it is that they need. That's based on whatever theme they're interested in that very moment, right? I had one of my kids got really hooked up on hung up on a stop sign. There was a stop sign in one of our materials and he would not stop talking about stop signs. So had I pulled up my AI during that moment, we probably could have come up with some stop sign related practice items that related to the skill he actually was supposed to be focusing on. And that would have been a really great way to just tie in whatever he was interested in right in that moment. All right. So that's number 1, is creating materials during your sessions. Number 2 then is to come up with session ideas. So this is one that you would maybe do outside of your session because you're going to kind of want to think through it before you jump in. But this is especially effective if you have groups of kids, because you can tell the AI, hey, I've got these however many kids in this group, here's all the different skills they're working on. I need one activity that's going to target all of them. All right. And so what you can do by that is you can specify, here's the materials I have, or here's the theme of the week. You could base it on a specific children's book that you've read as a group or that they're reading in class. And you can just say, okay, well, I've got to target this, 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 and this. How do I put all this together? All right. So let's pull her back up. I always say her because I have the female voice turned on. But I think, you can have other voices too. Okay, here's my example for this one. All right, I'm a speech language pathologist working with 2 third-grade boys. I need a simple no prep activity that I can do with them that will target their different specific skills that they're working on. And I need you to make sure there's no specific materials that are required. The first client is working on being able to tell a short narrative, story, or past event with at least 3 details in sequential order. And the other client is working on taking conversational turns with his peer. They really like the rodeo, so let's use that theme for this activity.
You could do a rodeo story roundup. Have them imagine they just came back from a rodeo. One boy can tell a short story about an event at the rodeo with 3 details in order, like watching bull roughing, eating popcorn, and seeing a cowboy win. After each detail, he pauses and the other boy responds with a quick comment or question, like, wow, was it scary? Or what happened next? Then they switch roles. No props needed, just imagination and conversational turns.
I love it. Okay, so you can see that if you give it more information, it's going to be able to customize it more. So I, specified that he needed 3 details. So she gave us some examples. You could ask for, iterations on that. So you can say, ooh, I like that, but I need this thing to happen. And so then you can go back and forth and fine tune those activities until you have something that you really, really love. Okay. For this specific example, these boys were playing rodeo on exercise balls. So they were pretending the exercise balls were the bulls. There we go. The bulls for bull riding. And so we were, on mats and stuff. So I could have specified, okay, we're going to have these things. So how can we use that and get that extra sensory movement in while we're doing it as well? So that's a really great one as well. Okay. Prompt number 3 is writing goals. So here's where we want to be very cautious, right? We're not asking the AI to decide what goals we should target, but if we know what skill we want to work on and we know kind of how we want the child to do it, we can use the AI to help us word the goals in a way that's easy to measure and is legally defensible. Oops. Oh, we're good. My screen just went weird. And all of those things, right? So we are going to ask her to help us word this goal and see what she comes up with. Now, this is one specifically that I definitely have to do a lot of versions of, and I have to often edit what comes out. But having just a place to start, something that's already created, and then I edit it is so much easier than trying to write that goal from scratch. So here we go with goal writing. Okay, I'm a speech language pathologist and I need to write a goal for a 2nd grader who is working on answering questions appropriately. I'd like for the goal to specifically target her ability to answer a variety of different questions as they come up naturally during conversation with me in the speech therapy room. Let's make sure the goal is defensible and includes all the necessary parts and is also easy for me to measure during a speech therapy session.
Goal. In structured conversational tasks with the speech-language pathologist, the student will appropriately answer a variety of spontaneous questions, including yes-no, WH questions, and open-ended with at least 80% accuracy across 3 consecutive sessions as measured by SLP data collection.
Very nice. Okay. So you can see there, it's going to give you something to start with. I would probably add to that by the end of the IEP cycle. You may need to add to that your baseline data. So you can then go through and tweak it and make it to exactly what they need. You will want to specify the specific criteria, like what percentage accuracy over how many sessions. You want to make sure that you're putting that in, not just letting the AI come up with something. But that's a really great way to get a goal start, and then you can tweak it. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 then is kind of along the same line. So this is accommodations and modifications. So this would be if you have a client who needs some extra support in the classroom, at home, they need different strategies, we're struggling to help them be successful with something, we can ask the AI to come up with suggestions for ways that we can modify the environment, accommodations we can make, teaching strategies, prompts, whatever it is that you need to help them be successful with that. So if you're writing IEPs, if you're in the US, then we have that accommodations and modifications section that can be used here. Or if you are just specifically looking for strategies that might help them in the classroom. I know I've used this on when people have asked for suggestions for 504 kids, where it's a child who doesn't qualify for services, but because of a medical diagnosis or an ADHD or whatever it is, they just need a little extra help to be successful. And coming up with those lists, this can be incredibly helpful there. So once again, I am going to pull up chat and we'll get this one. All right, I'm a speech language pathologist and I'm working with an 11-year-old client who is struggling to follow multi-step directions in the classroom. She often forgets what she's doing, loses track of time, can't recall the next step, or she gets distracted. Sometimes she will even do the steps out of order. What are some accommodations and modifications that we could implement in the classroom to help her become independent and successful with following multi-step directions?
First, you could provide written or visual checklists for multi-step tasks. She can check off each step as she completes it. Next, break directions into smaller, manageable chunks. Deliver only 1 or 2 steps at a time, then check in. You can also use a timer or visual schedule to help her manage time awareness so she knows when to move on. Providing her with a cue card or keyword reminder of the sequence can help keep her on track. Lastly, allow her to repeat the steps back before starting. This ensures she's heard and processed them accurately.
I love it. So again, these are probably strategies that you already knew. This is probably not going to be anything groundbreaking. But when we are sitting here trying to remember all of those strategies that we know and that we have used with past clients, having something to just get us started, having a generic list presented can be really helpful. And then we can go back and say, okay, yes, these are great, but the real problem is specifically when there's background noise or she's struggling with this one piece of this. And so if you give more information, then the AI will continue to generate more and more specific and customized suggestions. And you can really dig down to the nitty gritty, but it takes multiple back and forths. Okay. So don't just take the first output and say, well, this is the best the AI can do. Because if you give it more information, she'll give you more information back. All right. Okay. Last one for today. Our last prompt is for reports and email writing. So if you have something that you need to write out, then you can use ChatGPT to help you word it. Okay. So again, you need to know what you're going to say. You need to know what you want to put in, but then it will organize it in a logical manner and make it sound good. And then again, please, please, please go back and edit this, because the first thing that comes out of the AI is going to sound like AI. So if somebody has been using ChatGPT a lot, they're going to recognize that it sounds like ChatGPT. So you can do this one of two ways. You can either go in and take out any wording that doesn't sound like something you would say and change it to how you would say it. Or you can continue to provide prompts and say, okay, let's reword this in a more conversational tone, or let's reword this in a more professional tone. Or I like to, when I'm talking to parents, I like to relate it to things that are, something they can understand. Let's add some anecdotes or let's add some analogies, so you can modify this to sound more like you by going back and forth. And you can even say to the AI, I don't like this and I'm not totally sure why. I think it just sounds a little too vague. And then it will give you some more suggestions, or you can say, give me 5 different ways that I could word this, and it will reword it 5 different ways, and you can pick the one that feels right. Okay. So don't accept it at face value. Play with this, make it your own. And that's the way we use this as a tool as opposed to a crutch. All right. So here's our last prompt for Miss ChatGPT today. I'm a speech language pathologist and I'm writing a progress report for a client. I need to include how the client is doing on each of their goals and give a short suggestion for what the parents and caregivers can work on at home to support their progress. Here's the data I have. Please write this out in a few short paragraphs that I can copy and paste into my report. Use the name client and I will change it later. So goal 1, the R sound. We're at 60% accuracy in phrases, and goal 2 is to answer WH questions. She can currently answer who and what doing questions with 80 to 90% accuracy, and where questions are at 60% accuracy.
On the goal of producing the R sound, the client is currently achieving about 60% accuracy when using it in phrases. To support this at home, parents can practice short, fun sentences that include the R sound, encouraging slow, clear repetition. Regarding the goal of answering WH questions, the client is performing well on who and what doing questions with 80 to 90% accuracy, while where questions are at 60%. At home, caregivers can ask where questions during daily routines, like where is your book, and gently guide her to respond, helping her improve with practice.
I love it. Chat did so good for us today. Okay, so again, make sure you're not putting any protected information, no client names, anything like that. Then you go back and you add the names later, tweak it as needed. But I hope you can see how that will make it so much faster for you to get the information down on paper, and then you can just edit it as opposed to having to think about how to write it from scratch. That's where the time saving really comes in there. Again, you could do this for your reports, your evaluation reports, your screenings, any sort of emails that you're writing. Lots of different ways to use this to streamline and save time on that part of it. All right, I hope that's helpful to you. If you would like to use our AI-powered bots that are inside the curriculum, you can go to hub.speechandlanguagekids.com. We have one that's set up as a session planner that will give you those no prep therapy ideas. And then we have a word list generator, sentence prompt generator, reading passage generator, image generator, conversational prompt generator, social scenario generator. I also have one that will create the text for a social story. I forgot to include that today. That's a good one. As well as a goal writing or goal wording generator and an accommodations idea generator. So all of those are pre-built. All you have to do is just click a couple of buttons, type in, the skill you want to work on, and boom, it'll spit it right back out for you. So that's an option. Or again, use ChatGPT or one of the other AI services, anything that you have access to. These prompts should work. All right. Good luck with your prompting and let me know what questions you have. I'll see you next time on the Speech and Language Kids podcast. Bye for now.